Hello parents, tonight Ms. Alejandra, Ms. Sunanda and me, Ms. Durga, we're going to be presenting practical life and sensorial uh, education, and we're going to be talking a little bit of all the materials just so you get an idea as in how things work in a classroom. Practical life is the most integral part of the Montessori education system, as Maria Montessori quotes that a child who's self-sufficient, who can tie his shoes, dress or undresses himself, uh, reflects in his joy and sense of achievement the image of human dignity, which is derived from a sense of independence. As the quote says, practical life is all about taking care of self, the environment, and grace and courtesy. So, as an adult, when you look at practical life, it might look like a little child's play, pouring and spooning and things like that. But there are two different kinds of aims in every activity that the child performs. There is a direct aim and then there is an indirect aim. So the direct aim basically talks about four important things that we in Montessori world call it the OCCI, which is order, concentration, coordination, and independence. So each one of the work has something to do with the child achieving all four, or if not at least one or two of the direct aim. And every work also has an indirect aim, which is going to be helping them with developing their fine motor skills, gross motor skills, and movement, and just gaining the confidence to be achieving things on their own. So practical life can do all of that. So right now Ms. Alejandra is going to start off by presenting some of the very basic practical life work that we start off with when a child enters a class newly. And these are the work that we introduce to the kids for their fine motor skills, for their pencil grip and things like that. So Ms. Alejandra, please take.
Hello parents, tonight we are presenting Practical Life as we mentioned before. One thing that is very important for us is since the beginning how we sit. We on the chair, we sit, and it's part of the concentration, it's part of the control of movement. We always work left to right because it's the way how we write in a feature.
So when the spooning happens with kids, they do tend to drop the rice and tend to make a mess, which is all part of learning, which is again a lesson on its own. When they are spilling, they are also going to be taught how to clean up after themselves. And that's going to give them a lot more independence in taking care of themselves. So all of this is part of it. And once Miss Alejandra is done spooning from the left bowl to the right bowl, again she has to bring all the rice back to the left bowl so that it's ready for the next person to start the work from there.
Errors are part of the lessons, is the way how child is learning, and we always fix the accident or the error.
And there is never a moment that we need to raise our voices when the spill happens, because like I said, spills and error are part of learning and they do learn from it. So
Every child is cleaning again each material because it's very important, it's part of the learning, and the next material be ready for the next child.
And once they are done with the lesson, they will be going and putting it at the same place, so that they know that this lesson belongs to this place only, and that's the sequence of the lessons which they need to follow. And then once it is put at the right place, the other child is welcome to do the lesson. So I'm going to go put it back.
In this lesson, you can observe that the child is using the concentration, is focusing, and that is why children start with all these lessons, because they are controlling the body before to get a math lesson or language or letters or numbers. If the control of movement is not ready, usually they don't get the concentration in numbers or in letters.
So again, when it comes to pouring, we do two types of pouring. One is the dry pouring, and then comes the wet pouring. Typically, we do the dry pouring first, because again, it's easier control of error. It's easy to clean up versus a child going and getting a sponge, cleaning the wet spot, and then drying it with a rag. Dry pouring is something that's very easy for them to get done. So that's typically the first lesson in pouring. And now Ms. Alejandra is moving on to the next lesson.
So this is basically a tweezing lesson, and if you see the way she's holding it, it is actually a pre-writing exercise as well, because that's how you hold pencil, and it is helping her to develop pencil graph muscles, hand muscles, and strengthening her hand muscles. And this is exactly going to help the child in future to learn to hold pencil. And while doing the lesson, we encourage not to speak to the child, because when we are talking, we don't present lesson, and when we are presenting lesson, we don't talk. So it's just one thing at a time you're gonna do.
I see. Sometimes.
And it's pretty hard actually. It is not
Exactly.
easy
Yes,
lesson for the child.
that was happening here.
It
Was
is
not
easy.
easy.
Yes. Even the
Yes.
holding tweezing is not easy.
And even for us adults, if it's challenging, I can imagine for the little hands
Yes,
where
it
they're
is
still
actually.
practicing the
Yes.
strengthening of their
Yes.
fingers.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So now because Miss Alejandra has shown all the dry lessons, which is dry pouring or tweezing lesson or the spooning lesson, those are preliminary exercises, which are the first lessons which you present as a teacher. We present to the child, and then once we know that child is ready for the next lesson, which is harder, water pouring lesson, or the fine dry pouring, which is salt, then we introduce that. If you see how fine these salt particles are, so they really need to be focusing on putting it into the jar. And it's absolutely okay to spill. Like we said, control of error is there. They know this is coming out of the jar, and they need to, and then that's where we teach them to then do the sweeping.
Yes.
Sometimes kids want to go with different lessons and they are not ready. Of course, we have to explain, you are not ready yet, but you are going to get this lesson later, after you control this one. And please be patient. If you see that sometimes the child is not doing one lesson, it's not because we don't want that they don't touch this material. It's because we know they are not ready in that moment. And if they do it, sometimes they get a lot of errors or little kind of mess. And also children don't feel like very comfortable when they can see that, oh, I have a lot of mess. That is why we sometimes say, please wait a little more and practice this one first, and after that you are going to be able to get this lesson. Okay?
Yes. So In Montessori, it is very important to do repetition of lessons. So when we send activity report, since Miss Alejandra said that they need to be practicing more if we see that they are struggling with a lesson. The reason is in activity report you might see similar lessons or same lesson they have been doing, because in Montessori it's very important to do the repetition of work so that once they are confident enough, they move to the next lesson. So, yes.
So,
This is a dropper work where they have to pour water drops, just one drop in each section, and and again, if there is more water, there is no problem because we have the sponge to control it. Once they are done, they use the sponge to dry it. But what is it doing is, it is helping to build eye and hand coordination, and also a lot of focus to see where actually the water should be going.
and it is a very challenging work. There are variation in this. Miss Sunanda, I see, has a little squeezing water here, and there is also, we use the eyedropper. So that is also another control of error. To use the eyedropper itself is a little more challenging for the little hands to manipulate it, to get the water into the eyedropper thing and then putting it out.
Yes. Yes.
So
that has more steps. This eliminates actually some steps when we use this.
in the squeezing water.
Yes.
And it's very enticing too for the children, believe it or not, to see the little water droplets sitting on the suction cup.
Yes.
So it's,
It's very soothing.
Thank you, Ms. Alejandra.
It is really good for them to relax when when they work on the other lessons and they want to do something which relaxes them. We prefer them to do lessons like these.
And so then, which brings us to the care of self.
So yes.
You want to do this?
Yes. So the water pouring we.
Okay.
So finally, after all that lesson, now we are moving to a proper water pouring lesson. And this lesson itself has a lot of extensions where we use funnel, where we use other types of jars, big, small. But this is the first lesson which they should be doing when they move to water pouring lesson. And the reason we have the colored water is just because we want to make it more enticing to the children. So we put little bit of watercolor and just to make it more interesting. And it could be just plain water as well. Do you want to tell about this lesson?
Oh, like in the terms of
yes.
So this is again, the direct aim is concentration, hand-eye coordination, and control of movement is a major part of this, because when the children make a spill here, the spill can be bigger and it can even stain things if we have the colored water in it. So the children have to get into like literally deep clean, scrubbing things, not just wiping it off with a sponge and drying it with a rag. Sometimes they scrub things. So this has got a little more steps to it in order of error than if it happens. So let me put this one away.
Okay.
Yes.
The other part that is good in practical life is grace and courtesy. For example, she passed now behind of me and she say, "Excuse me." During circle time or during sometimes we always are talking with the children about thank you, about you are welcome, excuse me please, may I can pass, or some words that are very important for us in grace and courtesy. And these lessons are part of the circle time.
Something as simple as walking around the rug is so important when a child is working so that the other child is not stepping on their work, they're respecting their friend's space. All of that is part of grace and courtesy. But right now, Ms. Sunanda is going to be presenting two
Care.
different polishing work that comes under the self of care, care of self, and Ms. Sunanda, you want to get started?
Yes. So this lesson basically helps the child to be more independent, and once you are independent, of course, you will feel confident about yourself, which is again building your confidence indirectly. So direct purpose is to learn to care for yourself. So since we use aprons, but this is not my size, so I can't wear it, but I want to show this is how it looks. So every child has this apron, and we do wash it because of the COVID, of course. So, and there is a way to even fold this. So I'm gonna put this on the side. I'm gonna start with mirror polishing today. And there is a sequence of steps here. So first we have to have a water. I'm using a dropper here in the small picture here. And because of COVID again, I have stopped using cloths, so I just use tissue papers.
And the sponges are all washed. Sponges
Yes.
and rags that we use are washed.
Or water. It doesn't look so clean, so let's clean it today. And if there is any water spilled, I'm gonna just dry it out. And if I have extra water here, I'm just gonna dry this out with the sponge. And look, now this mirror looks so clean. So this is how we tell kids that, look, the mirror is looking so clean. And believe me, they can actually clean mirror even at home if they have their own small mirrors. So this is the first exercise they do in the polishing lesson. Then we move to wood polish. But for wood polish, we have a special polish. And for that, once they are done, we ask them to clean this with the water, and then we dry it with the sponge. And then we have metal polish after this, which is a little more hard, because metal polish, you really need to be sure that all the polish is gone from it. Otherwise, it will leave white scars. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the last, the most hardest is the shoe polish. But good thing is once they learn it, they can polish their shoes throughout their life. Yes. So this is what we try to teach them, being independent so that they can become more confident in life. So yeah, so I think I'm good with this lesson now. So I will just put it back, and it has to be done in the right way. So once we are done, we ask them to get the new Q-tip and cotton for the next child, and also this tissue paper. So I'm gonna just throw this away. And
Another care of self work that we all love doing is the dressing frame. Children enjoy doing that because it's going to be mimicking how they wear their clothes, like something as simple as a button, hook with the eye, and things like that. So, and this too, believe it or not, we have certain age-specific work. Timed work is something we teach them way later. That's more when they turn 4.5 and 5, when their hand-eye coordination are at its best. But this is typically one of the first lessons we teach them.
in this lesson, we are practicing pencil grip.
And it's a little harder for a 3-year-old, as easy as it might look for us, for them to be sticking the button through the eye hole and then pulling it out. It takes a lot of eye-hand coordination, but surprisingly there are so many 3-year-olds who ace it in the first try.
So I think we have a lot of extensions of each lessons, and then they go from easiest to most hardest. But it also depends on child to child. Once they master their lessons, we encourage them to go to the next lesson, so that they are ready for the next lesson. Do you think it's what?
Yes, because even the dressing frame has its own steps. So we would not dare to give a child who's 3 years old a dressing frame that has a safety pin in it. That would be something we would personally lean towards once they turn 4.5 or 5, when they know how to be absolutely careful with things. And tying is another work. The shoe tying, the lace tying is another work. We do not do it very early because that would frustrate a child, and chances are that they're never going to want to do it ever after that. But that would be a work that we would give to a 5-year-old mostly. So every little work in practical life area does have its own age-appropriate time to be presented, or the readiness of the child, if they are, like Ms. Alejandra and Ms. Sunanda said, like if they are ready for them in every which way, like physically, emotionally, all of that, we have to look into all of that and then proceed them with the work. Another important part of practical life area is called the care of the environment. That is a key in a Montessori classroom, because in our Montessori classroom, we take care of the classroom. The children and us take care of the classroom. When we say that, it's just not the flower, yes, the flower arrangement. You would have seen Miss Sunanda, Miss Alejandra, and Miss Ruchira, and every one of us, we buy flowers and we make the children cut it, place it in a little flower vase, and put a little doily and place it on a table. So all these things, it's going to make the classroom look absolutely beautiful. And another thing is plant care. Plant care is every child's favorite, I would say. They enjoy, first of all, watering the plant. But the plant care itself is a work that completely covers all process of a plant care. So basically the children are supposed to wear their apron, take a little placemat with a basket, with a spray bottle, a sponge and a rag. They bring the plant with the base of the pot, take it to a table, put it on the placemat, clean the leaves, take care of it, pull out the dry leaves, and then they water the plant, and then they look at it, they clean up the mess around it, take the plant back where it belongs. So every part of the plant care is thoroughly enjoyed and done so beautifully by the children, surprisingly. Another thing that the children love to do is rolling the rug.
Yes.
So Friday, every evening, if possible, if the rolls are not in good shape, the children pull out the rugs and they re-roll it. You can do it. Yes.
Okay, I don't know if,
Yeah, because it won't be visible.
because then it's on the floor.
Beautifully done,
Right.
Ms. Alejandra, thank you. Yet again, as simple as it might seem, is one more challenging work for the little 3-year-old kids. First time when you watch them roll the rug, it's more like shoving the rug.
Yes.
And then they are like trying to use their fingers and just push it down. But eventually, the more practice they get, they're able to do it so beautifully. And the best thing is when you watch them pat it from both the sides so that it all goes in together. So it's beautiful the way the children take so much interest in taking care of the classroom. It's a very, very important part of our classroom. So as parents, you might think, why is my child just putting flowers on a flower vase or like watering a plant? No, it's equally important. As much as the studies and the academics go, I think practical life is equally important. It just calms the children's mind. Even a kindergartner who's always busy working wants to take a break and wants to do a practical life work, and that to us is very, very important because they need to feel that they are part of the classroom. So I think that
I think we
kind of-
covered it.
yeah, pretty much we
Yes.
wrapped up the practical
So-
life area.
It's practical
So,
life.
Just practical
This
life.
is practical life for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.